Hey Mixers, welcome into my way too early NFL Part 1 season-long bets video. We're going to cover some award bets, we're going to cover some win totals, we're going to cover some division winners, some Super Bowl winners, some player props. We got a little bit of everything. So keep in mind, obviously, free agency has not happened, the draft has not happened, and so these are just a few bets that I'm looking at that I feel like we could go in on these numbers that we're getting right now. So let's jump into that. First of all, before we jump into that, a couple of tips to betting season long, not just player props, but just things in general. Obviously, your money is going to be tied up, so consider that. When you think about how much you want to be putting into these things, I don't really consider it to be too much of like locking up my money. It's like investing in the stock market. I mean, if I bet like a win total and I get like a 90% return on that win, if I win it, then that's way better than any stock market return I'm going to get in 1 year's time. So I don't mind putting my money into some of these bets that I really believe in. Also, they're just really fun. However, usually I'll go in on like a couple of really big bets and everything else will just be small and just for fun. Keep in mind that the lines are low, so they look very attractive because they're already baking in injury risk, usage risk, all of that stuff. So unders are your friend here, but I know it's very tempting to go in on the overs, and I do go in on some of the overs, but the unders tend to usually be better bets, so just keep that in mind. Lots of value in alt lines, so we're not getting those right now, but in a couple of months, they will give us alt lines on win totals, on season-long player props, and you can take alt lines on those and make those way easier to hit. Take a stand on rookies, take a stand on mixed backfields. Obviously if you're wrong, you're going to be wrong, but if you're right, you could ladder that up and make quite a bit of money. So for instance, this past season, I took a huge stand on Javonte Williams. I was posting about him all the time, telling everyone to draft him, telling him he was going to get 1,000 yards rushing, and his line was only like 575, something like that. And I did draft him in one league, but I couldn't get him in the others. And yeah, I should have reached for him sooner because he was amazing. I knew he was going to have 1,000-yard season because the Cowboys always have 1,000-yard rusher. And, so that was one of my take a stand things that I did last year. I'm not always right because I can take a stand. Like I thought, Bijan Robinson would be the RB1 this year. And I thought that Nico Collins could potentially be the WR1. Well, neither one of those things happened. So, but I bet on those things to happen. And I didn't lose a ton of money on it. But I think it's valuable to take a stand. I also took a stand on Tedero McMillan as the Rookie of the Year. That obviously did come through. There is some value at wide receiver because our running back lines are a little bit more solid. So they're easier to project, which gives the books an edge. With the wide receivers, they're less easy to project, especially right now because free agency and the draft hasn't even happened. And so that gives us the edge if our hunches are correct. Those are just some tips and tricks for me. So the first bet I want to talk about is the Super Bowl first-time winner bet. Now, DraftKings took this down, so I don't know if they're going to put this back up or if other books are going to put up something similar. But they did have a bet. Will the Super Bowl winner be a first-time winner? Yes was plus 185. And with the yes bet, you would be getting these teams. In the AFC, you'd be getting the Bills, the Bengals, the Chargers, the Texans, and the Jaguars, who were all playoff teams last year except the Bengals, and then the Titans and the Browns as well. And then on the NFC side, you would be getting the Lions, the Vikings, the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Cardinals. So obviously, with these odds, the books are skewing more towards the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Seahawks, and the Rams. Those are the teams that are the favorites to win the Super Bowl. And you are not getting any of those teams if you were to bet this. But I think it's a great bet. All right. First bet here is going to be a win total. Cardinals under 4.5 wins. And I know that's such a low number, but it's minus 110 right now. You would think that they would improve. We don't know if they're even going to have Kyler Murray on the team. Probably not. We don't know who they're going to draft. We don't know who they're going to bring in through free agency. So there's a lot of question marks here, but just let's take a look at their schedule here and see who we think they can beat. The Rams, maybe they score a win against the Rams, like one out of the two matchups. The 49ers, I think they can win one of those matchups at least. The Seahawks, I don't think so. I think the Seahawks will beat them both times. The Eagles, I don't think so. The Commanders, potentially. The Broncos, no. The Raiders, potentially. The Cowboys, I would say maybe, but probably not. Kansas City Chiefs, Chargers, Rams, Giants, who I think are going to be much improved this year and have a great defense. 49ers again, Seahawks again, and then we have the Jets, the Lions, and the Saints. So I think like the Cardinals, to me, like their absolute ceiling is like 7, and that's if they won like all of these matchups that I think they could even possibly be competitive in. And I think it's more likely that we land right around 4. And potentially, if they start off poorly, then they could kind of tank and have like a tanking season. Also, their division is very competitive with the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers. So the chances of them making a playoff run are like slim to none. They know that. They have a tough schedule here. I do think the Commanders are going to be a little bit better than last year as well. So I don't know if that can be a win for them. This is a scary number here. I think it's a fair line. So we're getting a fair line because I think that the odds of them landing at 4 and the odds of them landing at 5 are pretty good. So I think, 4 and 5 are both pretty good. I'm going to lean towards the under just because I do think that 4 is kind of what I see is their ceiling, and then maybe they get a freak win. Maybe they get a free like week 17 win or like week 18 win. Who knows? I don't know what the schedule even looks like right now. I just think that this is one bet that we could consider. And instead, if you want better odds, you could bet the Cardinals to be the worst team in the league, have the worst record in the league. That bet is not available yet, but this is just something that I am considering going in on right now. All right, the next one here is going to be the Saints under 7.5 wins. So I went up, put up their schedule as well. I highlighted in yellow the teams I think they can beat. So we've got the Browns. I think they could beat the Browns, but I also think the Browns could end up surprising a lot of people and be much better in next year. So we'll count it for now just to see what their ceiling is. The Falcons, we're going to count them. The Ravens, I think, are going to be much better. They're one of the Super Bowl favorites. The Panthers, maybe. They are playing that game at the Panthers, but they should also play the Panthers at home, and they should be able to win at least one of those. The Bears, I'm going to say no to the Bears. No to the Bengals, no to the Lions. The Falcons, we already have them trading with the Falcons. We have them trading with the Panthers. I gave them a trade with the Buccaneers, even though I think any of the Falcons, Panthers, or Buccaneers could easily sweep this team. And then the Packers, who I think are going to make a Super Bowl run. The Vikings, who have a great defense, and obviously they've had a crappy quarterback situation last year. I think they're going to get that figured out. And then the Steelers, who I think are going to be much weaker. So I think they could win one of these games between the Packers, Vikings, and Steelers. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be the Steelers, but we'll give them one of those 3 games. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers again. I don't think they can beat the Bucs twice. We're already giving them one. And then the Raiders, the Cardinals, we'll give them both of those. And then the New York Giants, who I think are going to be a much improved defense. And I think their offense might be pretty good as well. And that is an away game for the Saints. So if we just go with the highlighted teams and we go ahead and just give them like the Browns, that's only 7. They still need one more. And I think the chances of them falling even further than this are even better. Like they could get swept by the Buccaneers and the Panthers. Maybe the Steelers they can't beat. I just don't know that they can beat any of these other teams. So I'm going to go ahead and bet on the under there. On the Saints, they're an aging team. Their skill positions are weak. They just sold off Rashid Shaheed, which I think they are going to bring someone in. I don't know who it's going to be, but I do think they will bring someone in through free agency this year, or maybe they draft someone like Carnell Tate or Jeremiah Love. Because Alvin Kamara, I think, is cooked at this point. They have some good tight ends. They've got decent tight ends. I don't think their quarterback play is necessarily going to be much better than it was last year. So that is what I am rolling with on the Saints. And then our third win total is going to be the Titans. These are all unders for now. Under 6.5 wins, we're getting some plus money for that. So I do think the Titans will be much improved, but they're in a highly competitive division with the Jaguars, the Texans, and the Colts. 2 of those 4 teams made the playoffs last year. The Colts should be improved with their wide receiver, not their wide receiver core, but their secondary. Sorry, it's not even late at night. I have no excuses. But their secondary should be improved now that Sauce Gardner has had a lot more time with the team, and their offense was rolling last year. So I think this is going to be a tough division. It's going to be tough to get a ton of wins in this division. And so for a team that's at the bottom who has a pretty tough schedule, then I don't know that they're going to get to this number. So let's take a look here. So the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Steelers. So they're playing the Ravens, the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Browns. I think out of those 4 teams, they should be able to get 1 win. So I put it on the Steelers. And then we have the Cowboys, the Texans, the Colts, and the Jaguars. And, well, let's do the division. The Colts, I have them trading with the Colts. And then I have them getting swept by the Jaguars and the Texans. So maybe they win 1 extra game there. So I'll give them an extra one here in my counting. I'll give them the Cowboys. So I think out of the Cowboys, the Giants, the Commanders, and the Eagles, they should be able to get 1 win out of those 4 teams. So I'll give them the Cowboys. And then the we did the Giants. So what else do we have left here? The Lions, the Raiders, and the Jets. So out of those 3 teams, I'll give them the 2 wins against the Raiders and the Jets. So on the screen here, I have them with 5 wins. But if we give them 1 more, like in the division, that would put them at 6. They would need to trade with every team in their division to get to 7. Maybe they beat the Commanders or one of the other weaker teams like that. Maybe the Bengals, maybe the Commanders, maybe the Browns. So they would have to get quite a few more wins to go over this. And so for the plus money, I am going to be going in on this today. And, who knows? They can always do it. Now, having said that, I am more optimistic about Cam Ward because I still think he was a great prospect. And I think he played pretty well last year, actually. So we're going to go in on a Cam Ward prop a little bit later. All right. Bengals to win the AFC North is plus 230 right now. So the Ravens are the favorites, but I think the Bengals should be the favorites. The Bengals have the easiest schedule in the NFL. This is how I picked the Patriots last year. I didn't pick them to go to the Super Bowl, but I did pick them to have a good season. And so the Bengals are now in that spot with the easiest schedule in the NFL. Especially considering the caliber of quarterback that Joe Burrow is. So here's the schedule, but I wanted to show you on the left here the 3 non-common opponents that the division is going to be playing. So the Ravens are getting the Chargers, the Bills, and the Cowboys. The Browns are getting the Raiders, the Giants, and the Jets. And then the Steelers are getting the Patriots, the Eagles, and the Broncos. The Bengals are getting the Buccaneers. No. Let's see. In the AFC West, they're playing the Chiefs. So they drew a bad card on that one. But Joe Burrow has had success against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs before. And then in the NFC West, they are playing Washington Commanders. And then in the, let's see, what's the other division? The AFC North. No. The AFC East, sorry. They are playing the Dolphins, which is the best draw. So the Dolphins, the Commanders, and the Chiefs. I think those match up pretty well with these other teams. I mean, I might have rather had the Raiders, the Jets, and the Giants, but I think that's second best here. So the Browns technically have the best, easiest schedule, but I think the Bengals' schedule is pretty easy as well. So their home games, what I like about the home games is that the tough teams that they're playing at home next year, like the Jaguars, the Chiefs, and the Buccaneers, Joe Burrow already has a winning record against all of those teams. And now he gets to play them at home rather than playing them on the road. And then on the road, they play a bunch of tougher teams, like tougher defenses, I guess I would say. Like the Browns, they're going to play the Browns on both sides. But the Panthers play much better at home. The Texans, the Colts play better at home. And then the Dolphins and the Falcons and the Washington Commanders. So I think that we have for sure 6 wins on the board, like for free, basically. Like splitting with the division, and then the Titans at home, the Saints at home, and then the Dolphins away. Those should be 3 easy wins. And then I think Joe Burrow, with just his record, could pick up 1 or 2 of the Jaguars, Chiefs, and Buccaneers. So that would put us at 7 or 8. And then away, he should be able to pick up the Falcons and the Commanders, or at least one of those. So maybe we're looking at 9 or 10 wins for the Bengals, and I think that's all it's going to take to win this division. So, yeah, I like Bengals plus 230 to win the AFC North. And then I'll also just sprinkle on Joe Burrow MVP plus 1,000, because with the easiest schedule in the NFL, and no defense, so they're going to be allowing people to score, I think Joe Burrow is going to be throwing quite a few touchdowns. So, yeah, I think that he could lead the league in touchdowns. That could possibly earn him MVP. I think this is a pretty good bet here. All right, I did want to show you the Browns. Now, I'm not going in on this, but I just wanted to show you and put up the numbers. The Browns to win the AFC North is plus 1,300, and I think you'd have to pay me a little bit more to go in on that. But I like Shedeur Sanders MVP plus 40,000. I'm going to sprinkle just like a couple dollars on that just for fun, because the Browns do have a really easy schedule. And if they draft correctly and use free agency correctly to fix their offensive line, I don't really think they need too many more players at the skill positions to make something like this happen with their easy schedule. So, I mean, if they just trade with their division and win the home games, which they've shown they can do with their defense, then they get the Colts at home, they get the Falcons at home, the Panthers at home, the Raiders at home, they get the Saints, the Titans, the Jets. So, I mean, they could easily be walking into like a 10 wins, no big deal here. So I don't think it's crazy to be putting a bet on this. I just think we're going to get better odds for the Browns to win after the season starts. So I'm going to wait on this. All right, Joe Burrow, we're already going in on his MVP, but also let's go in on his passing yards. So he has 5,000 passing yard potential. You know, we all know that Joe Burrow has like a high-powered arm, and that's like his ceiling. So his biggest season was 2 seasons ago. He passed for 4,918 yards. So that roof is there. And then over the past like 3 full seasons played, he has hit this line. Where he actually did miss, 1 or 2 games there. And then his rookie year, over 10 games, he did hit this over on average. So in order to hit this line for 17 games, he would need to throw 246 passing yards per game. So I don't think that's asking a lot. I mean, his line is going to be probably set around 280, 275 most of the time. So I think that we can go in on this. Now, keep in mind, these lines are low. I told you this at the beginning of the video because there's injury risk. Like, he could miss games. Last year, he missed a bunch of games. So you just never know. But I do think that this is a good bet, and I'm going to be placing it. It would only take him 15 games played to hit this line with his normal average that he has. Like his average line, which is, like I said, around 270-ish usually most of the time. All right, and then his passing touchdowns is like my least favorite out of all the bets we've talked about, but I just want to throw it in here to talk about it. He would need 2 passing touchdowns per game in all 17 games to get over this line. So that's pretty tough, because if he has a 1 passing touchdown game or a 0 passing touchdown game, that means he's going to need to make it up with some 3 and 4 touchdown games, plus not miss any games. So I don't love it, but I do think he has the potential to have 40-plus touchdowns, and probably more than any other quarterback in the league has the potential to have 40-plus touchdowns. So I just want to have a little sprinkles on all of this stuff for Joe Burrow. All right, Commanders to win the NFC East. This is only plus 550. I want to wait on this and get a better price, because I think that we will get a better price. Based on the win totals, the books are seeing that the Commanders could potentially be last in their division. And so that is why I want to wait, because I think we're not getting the price we deserve here. And same with Jaden Daniels MVP plus 2,000. I think it needs to be more than that. So looking at the Commanders' schedule, the non-common opponents are going to be the Vikings, the Bengals, and the Falcons. So Vikings, Bengals, Falcons, that's pretty rough, I think of a draw. Whereas like the Eagles got the Bears, Steelers, and Panthers, which I think is much weaker. Cowboys got the Packers, Ravens, and Bucks, which I think is tough. And then the Giants got the Lions, Browns, and Saints, which I think is pretty tough, actually. So I think the Eagles actually got the best deal here on schedule. And then the Commanders maybe second best out of that. Now this is they have a lot of money, so I'm curious to see what they do with it, because this team has not been managed well, in my opinion. I mean, my humble opinion, I think they're wasting Jaden Daniels' talent. They're not putting the right pieces around him. They are not spending their money or trading in the wisest way possible. And so maybe that just means that this team will always be a disaster, and that could definitely be the case. The only thing is that if the Commanders trade with their team, just get one win for each team in the division, then I think they can win, 2 of these other home games. The other ones are pretty tough: Rams, Seahawks, Texans, Bengals. And then at least 2 of these away games, Cardinals and Titans. Those should be pretty easy wins. So that is 7 right there. And I think you're only going to need 9 or 10 to win this division. So maybe they beat the 49ers. Maybe they sweep the Giants. Maybe they sweep the Cowboys. Maybe the Vikings still suck. So I don't think it's a crazy bet, but I'm waiting for a better price because I feel like we deserve a better price. All right. Same thing with the Giants here, so plus 700. And I think we deserve a better price for that. Although the Jackson Dart MVP price, I kind of like it at plus 4,500. I'm not like all in on Jackson Dart. I'm not like completely sold on him. But he does get maybe a slightly easier schedule than the Commanders. But then Jaden Daniels is better than Jackson Dart, probably. And I think that the Giants do have a better overall team, that they're not going to have to build up in free agency and the draft. So there's fewer question marks at the skill positions and the O-line, D-line for the Giants, in my opinion. But I still think the Eagles probably do have the best chance to win this division. I'm just saying these bets are interesting to me. After free agency plays out, that's probably when I'm going to end up jumping in on some of these. All right, the Packers, I do think, have a good chance to go to the Super Bowl. So let's talk through this. So I'm going to take the Packers to win the NFC North at plus 185. If you want to take the the Lions, they are plus 165, and they are the favorites right now. And then Jordan Love MVP plus 1,500, I think, is a great bet. So let's take a look at the Packers home games, which are pretty easy. The Bears, Vikings, Lions, let's just assume they trade there. And then the Falcons, Panthers, Dolphins, Cowboys, those are all fairly weak teams that they could win against. Bills and Texans are going to be a little harder. And then the away games, they get easy away games. So the Saints and the Jets should be easy wins. So on this schedule here, just if they trade in their division, I'm seeing 9 wins. Cakewalk to 9 wins. And maybe they pull, and then it'll be up to their gameplay to pull out the other couple of wins that it's going to take to win this division. I think you're going to have to get to 11 or 12 to win this division. And maybe this division does send 2 teams to the playoffs. A couple years ago, they sent 3 teams to the playoffs. But yeah, I think the Packers have the best chance to be on top because they have the easiest schedule. So their non-common opponents here are going to be the Texans, the Cowboys, and the Rams. The Texans, the Cowboys, and the Rams. So that's not great. But their opponents, the Lions are the favorite. They get the Titans, the Giants, and the Cardinals. I do think that's much easier, and we're going to talk about the Lions in a second. Vikings get the Colts, the Commanders, and the 49ers, which I think is pretty rough for a team that just lost their division. And then the Bears get the Jaguars, the Eagles, and the Seahawks, that's incredibly tough. So I think the Bears are going to have a hard time this year. The Vikings, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to struggle, but they didn't exactly get an easy schedule. The Lions got the easiest schedule, in my opinion. And then the Packers got the next best schedule. So let's talk about the Lions as well. So Lions to win the NFC North is plus 165. So I think those are both fair prices. You could go in on that right now because eventually one of these teams is going to be minus money probably, or at least closer to plus 100, plus 105. So we're getting really good prices on them right now. And then Jared Goff is plus 4,000 to get the MVP. So Jared Goff has a really easy home schedule. He should be able to win pretty much all of his home games. So he's got his division games, the Bears, the Vikings, and the Panthers. So if he can just win the home games. And then at home, the Saints, the Bucks, the Patriots, the Jets, the Texans, and the Cowboys. The only super tough defense in there is the Texans. And then maybe the Patriots, they obviously weren't playing to their full abilities all season last year because they didn't have Tony Gonzalez the whole year. And then they had to develop some of their players. So coming into the next season, I do expect their defense to be pretty strong. But they get, a pretty easy home schedule there where they should be able to rack up 7 easy wins. And then their away games, they get some easy wins, like easy matchups against the Falcons, the Dolphins, the Cardinals. Those should be, easier matchups. And then they also have the Bills and the Panthers, so they could easily win some of those as well. I agree with the lines, and I agree with the books, that the Lions do have the best chance to win this division. I just think the Packers could also do it. I don't even care if they lose Romeo Doubs in free agency. I think that they've got the coach, they've got the quarterback, they have a decent running back, and then they've got good tight end. I think they just have the pieces that they need. And the Lions also have a lot of good pieces. They might be losing David Montgomery here in the offseason. We don't know. But I don't think that hurts them as much as other people do. So I'm in on the Lions. I'm in on the Panthers. I definitely want to have bets on both. All right. Chargers to win the AFC West, plus 180. The Chiefs are the favorites. So the Chargers have a pretty rough away schedule. So I expect them to lose a lot of these away games. They have to play like the Chiefs away, the Broncos, obviously in the division, and then the Bills, the Seahawks, the Ravens. So those are some tough away games. The Rams even in an away game. Well, technically, I don't know if that game will be an international game or not, but I mean, obviously that would be in California. But that's a tough away schedule. The home schedule should be a little bit better. They have their division games, obviously, the Broncos and the Raiders, the Chiefs, and then Patriots, Jets, Cardinals, 49ers should be doable at home. Going into this season, though, I think the Chargers have the most built team, that they don't need to go out in free agency and get any pieces. So they've got a killer running back that I think is amazing. They have a good offensive line when they're healthy. I mean, when that offensive line was healthy, they were lethal. They had one of the top secondaries last year. And then, of course, they have Justin Herbert, who's awesome. I think Ladd McConkey's amazing. Quentin Johnson has quietly been very good. And then they have Trey Harris waiting in the wings, who I think they're going to develop into an amazing player as well. So I really am all in on the Chargers this year. And then the non-common opponents that they're playing are the Ravens, the Texans, and the Bucks. So that is a tough draw. Their opponents for the other teams in the division, Chiefs get the Bengals, Colts, and Falcons, which isn't too bad. The Broncos get the Steelers, the Jaguars, the Panthers. Those are some tough defenses, but I don't think that's too bad either. Browns, Titans, and Saints for the Raiders, which is obviously the best draw. But I don't know if the Raiders just don't have the firepower to overcome their own team deficiencies, let alone their schedule. So I think that this isn't going to be like this year where the Chargers and the Broncos are off to the races. I think it's going to be more like how the NFC North was, or the AFC North was last year, where like 9 wins gets you the division, or maybe even 8, 8 or 9. Like, it's going to be really tough here. That's what I think. And I think the Chargers can do it. So this is how I kind of evaluated that decision. And then some more Chargers picks that I want to go in on. And it looks like a lot, but I'm only going to be betting like half unit, quarter units on a lot of these. So at coach, I think Andy Reid, I put him as the best coach out of this division, and Jim Harbaugh is second. But I think that that's arguable, that Jim Harbaugh could potentially be the best coach. Sean Payton, I know everybody loves Sean Payton. I am not as in on him as other people, but I do think he's close to that. And then at quarterback, I put Patrick Mahomes as the best. Justin Herbert is the second best. Bo Nix, Fernando Mendoza, probably about the same, in my opinion. And then wide receivers, Quentin Johnson has been more productive. Like Quentin Johnson, Ladd McConkey combo has been more productive than the Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy combo was last year. And I don't know if that will continue or not, but I think it's close. So I put them as first, and then, the Chiefs is second there. But the Raiders, Trey Tucker and Jack Besh, that's not going to do anything. So they're going to have to bring someone in, and we're going to have to wait and see who that person's going to be. And then the Broncos, Cortland Sutton, Troy Franklin, I'm not impressed with that wide receiver room, never have been. And I don't think Sean Payton cares to really bring in a star wide receiver into that room. If they did, I do think this would change a little bit. So we would have to redo this, I guess. And then at running back, Omarion Hampton, in my mind, is the clear number one out of this running back room. Tight end, I think Brock Bowers, and then Aronde Gadsden on the Chargers is next. Travis Kelce's aging out, obviously. I don't think his replacements are that well trained yet, or like, I don't know that they're not Travis Kelce level, that's for sure. At least they haven't shown that yet. And then I think the usage on the Broncos is just too low, so we don't really know about like how high Evan Ingram's ceiling could be if they actually played well. Offensive line, I'm going to give that to the Chargers and then to the Broncos. And then defense, I'll give that to the Broncos first, then the Chiefs, then the Chargers third, and last to the Raiders. And then schedule, they actually have the worst schedule, I think, the Chargers do. And the Raiders have the best one, obviously. But the way I ranked this, I mean, this is a very simple ranking, so don't take this and like take it to the window and start making bets on it. But this ranking has me putting the Chargers well ahead of everybody else. And like I was saying, you could argue Jim Harbaugh might be better than Andy Reid. You know, there's arguments to be made. So I think that the Chargers have the best chance to come out of their division. And so I want to also just bet them on all these other things. So Chargers to win the AFC West, first of all. And then to win the AFC is plus 800. This is like a ladder play. So they would have to beat, I don't know who they're going to draw, but they might end up going through the Bengals, the Ravens, the Bills, the Jaguars, the Texans. There's quite a lot of good teams in the AFC that they would need to get through. And they had a pathetic showing against the Patriots this past season. But they weren't playing healthy. So, I just don't think it counts. And then Chargers to win the Super Bowl plus 1,600. And then I'm just going to sprinkle a couple dollars over here on Chargers to beat the Seahawks in the Super Bowl, Chargers to beat the Packers in the Super Bowl, and Chargers to beat the Lions in the Super Bowl. So none of these things could end up happening, and I could lose all of this. And that's why I'm only putting a total of like 2.5 units on all of these bets combined. But that is what I like. Let me know where you think I'm completely wrong on this. Keep in mind, free agency hasn't happened and the draft hasn't happened. So I'm trying to keep those things in mind as well. I think the Chiefs, the biggest opportunity here in my mind is for the Chiefs to take Jeremiah Love and upgrade at running back. And I think that would put them in the conversation in my mind. But I do not think that they're going to be doing that. But we'll see. I think that would be their smartest move. But we'll see what ends up happening. All right. Now some player props. So we're going back in on Nico Collins over 6.5 receiving touchdowns. I bet this last year. He only played 15 games and he had 6. So I think he easily would have gotten 7 if he had played all 17 games. But my biggest issue with Nico Collins is that he has never played a full season. So he is over in 15 games in 2023. He's over in 12 games in 2024. And then he hooked us last year with 15 games played, 6 touchdowns. If he plays all 17 games this year, I think he could see 10 plus because he's just that good in my opinion. The non-division opponents for the Texans this year are going to be the Browns, the Ravens, the Bengals, the Steelers, the Cowboys, the Giants, the Eagles, the Commanders, Packers, Bills, and Chargers. And I highlighted the games where I think that Nico Collins could have extra impact in, like where I feel like he's almost guaranteed a touchdown in those 4 games. And so he just would need 3 more somewhere else on the schedule. And I think that is definitely doable, especially against like the Titans. I think even the Colts could let him have some. The Jaguars were really weak against outside wide receivers last year until they fixed it towards the end of the season. So I don't think this is a bad bet. I made it last year. It did not cash. I made it the year before. It did cash. I'm going in on it again. And I will consider playing him over 10, like over 9.5 for some plus money. But that is pretty risky because he has not played a healthy season, which is the only problem here. But the first healthy season he does play, he's going to break this touchdown record, I think. He's not going to break the all-time touchdown record. I just think he's going to go 10 plus easily and blow people's minds. Okay. Chris Olave. Now, you just saw we were fading the Saints win total, so I'm not high on the Saints. But I do think they're going to bring in a couple pieces. They kind of don't have a choice. Last year, Chris Olave went over this line for the first time in 16 games played. So he had 9 touchdowns in 16 games played. He had 6 in the second half alone once Tyler Shuck took over as the quarterback. And he had two touchdown games. One was with Shuck, one was without Shuck. So just in the second half of the season, he was basically averaging a touchdown per game. So if he plays 16 or 17 games this year, that would put him on pace for about 8. So even if he has a little bit of regression from last year, I do think that he can get here for us on this easy 5.5 number. The non-division opponents for 2026 for the Saints are going to be the Browns, the Ravens, the Bengals, the Steelers, the Bears, the Lions, Packers, Vikings, Raiders, Cardinals, and Giants. I think Olave has a really good matchup against the Bengals, Steelers, Raiders, and Cardinals. That's 4 out of the 6 touchdowns right there that we need. I definitely think he's going over this number, so I'm going to be going in on this. All right, Brock Bowers over 5.5 receiving touchdowns. I don't even know why we're being offered this line, but I do expect the Raiders to bring in a wide receiver. I don't know who that's going to be, but they don't have one. They need a number 1 wide receiver on their team, and it can't just be Brock Bowers, and I think that they know that. So anyway, he hooked this in his rookie season in 17 games played. That was playing with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. He did have 7 last year with Geno Smith in only 12 games. So last year, he would have been on pace for like 10 plus touchdowns. Now, I don't think that's going to happen every year. He's not going to get force-fed like that. I think he did have a 3-touchdown game as well. So that was like half his touchdowns right there. But I just wanted to show you that his new coaches, like his new head coach and his new offensive coordinator, so his new head coach and offensive coordinator are coming from the Seahawks and the Saints. So here's what those coaches did while they were on those teams. The number 1 touchdown scorer on the team for the Saints was Foster Moreau, the tight end, with 5. And then on the Seattle Seahawks, after Jackson Smith and Jigba, the next highest touchdown scorer on the Seahawks last year was A.J. Barner with 6, which was a tight end. So I do think, and then also looking back at the Saints, Juwan Johnson is also in the top 3 scorers for the Saints. So I do think that these coaches have a tight end mindset, and they're now playing with what could be one of the best tight ends in the league. So I definitely want to be betting over this line. All right, Ladd McConkey over 5.5 receiving touchdowns. Now, if we think that the Chargers are going to roll like I do, then their pass catchers are going to get touchdowns. So Ladd has cleared this line in both of his seasons. He had 7 in his rookie season, 6 in last year. And this could be the Chargers' strongest season yet, in my opinion. I think they could lead the league in points per game. I think they could be scoring 30 points per game. They also get people on their schedule like the Jets, the Cardinals, the Dolphins, the Buccaneers, the 49ers, the Ravens, who have all allowed a ton of touchdowns last year anyway. Plus, they get to play the Raiders twice. So I think that that's plenty of opportunity for Ladd to clear this line. And then if you look at who has scored the most touchdowns, it was Quentin Johnson in both years, last year and the year before, with 8, which might surprise people because he quietly scored those touchdowns. Like, I don't think it was very splashy necessarily, and I don't think a lot of people were really paying attention because we all counted him out because he was dropping so many balls the year before. So I think Quentin Johnson will continue to be like that 8 touchdown guy. And then we just need Ladd McConkey coming out of the slot to be able to at least get 6, because that's the number. But I think that he can get it. Like, this is like an Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of role. And then Jamison Williams for Quentin Johnson. If we're modeling it after that Lions model, then, but with QJ getting a few more touchdowns, then I think QJ's upside is like 10 plus. Ladd McConkey's upside is like 8 to 10 at least. So Keenan Allen's probably going to stay on the team, and then Oronde Gadsden did break out last year, so maybe he gets 2 more touchdowns, and maybe that comes from Ladd McConkey's touchdowns. But I think the team overall just scores more touchdowns because they didn't score a lot last year necessarily, but they did when they were healthy. So I like this one. All right, if we're going in on the Chargers, we might as well go in on the quarterback. Over 24.5 passing touchdowns. This is too low for Justin Herbert, who's already cleared this line in 4 out of like the last 6 seasons that he's been in the league. And obviously he would have cleared that if he had played at least 16 games in the other season, 2023. So if he plays a full season this year, which there's no reason to assume he won't, but we have to consider it, then I think he could clear 30 touchdowns. So I just think this number's too low. Now, this is the same reasoning that I went in on Bo Nix last year. So last year, Bo Nix's line was 24.5, and I told you guys to bet it. It went up to 26.5, and I'm pretty sure he even cleared that line. And my reasoning was, I think this team has the best offensive line, like a really good offensive line. And then I don't know about their running back necessarily, but because of that really good offensive line, I think their quarterback's going to have success scoring, at least 1.5 touchdowns per game. I think Justin Herbert could smash this line. All right, Jordan Love we also need to go in on because he has already cleared this line once when he led the league in passing touchdowns, tied with Dak Prescott, I think, that year in 2023. Basically his rookie season, his first season as a starter. And then he was on pace in season 2, but didn't play enough games. And then also last year, he would have fell short by 1 based on his pace, even if he played like all 17 games. Or maybe cleared the line by 1. It would have been very close. Josh Jacobs is getting older. He's 28 years old now. And so I think Jordan Love is going to be relied upon a little bit more to make those passes. And I think Jordan Love would have cleared this line easily if Tucker Kraft had stayed healthy all year and if all of his wide receivers could freaking stay healthy. Now, like I said earlier, I don't care if Romeo Doubs gets lost in free agency because I think they'll bring someone else in or they'll develop Matthew Golden. They'll develop Savion Williams. I don't remember if Savion's last name is Williams, but it's close. But I trust this coach and this system to develop players that can catch the ball for Jordan Love. So I like this line here as well. All right, I'm not going in on this line yet, but I want to talk through it. So Caleb Williams over 374.5 rushing yards. He's already been over this twice. So they're tempting people right now with this line, and I think it's working. But I would rather get it at like 350 because I think he could regress somewhat. Now, in 2024, the rookie season, 39% of his rush yards on the season were in division. And then last year, 40% of his rush yards were in division. So what that means to me is that his rushing yards are fairly safe. Like, that's a nice floor that 40% of your production is coming from your division every year. So he is going to play some tougher teams. Sometimes that leads to more rushing yards for quarterbacks. So that's why I don't hate this look. I just want to get a better number at like 350, maybe even 365 if we can. Right now, we're only getting numbers from Prize Picks. Eventually, we will get numbers from Underdog. We will get numbers from Boom Fantasy. I think Sleeper eventually does go in on the season-long player props, but not until like, I don't know, August. And so we might have to wait on this, but I think we can get a better number here. All right, Cam Ward over basically to have 3,200 passing yards. So he already did this last year. So we just need him to do what he did already the first year. Last year, 10 out of the 17 games that he played, this was their schedule, 10 out of these 17 games were against playoff teams. Next year, the Titans only have 6 playoff teams on their schedule from the previous year, and 4 of those teams are in the division. So outside of their own division, they only play 2 teams that were playoff teams last year. So they have a much easier schedule, and we're just asking Cam Ward to repeat what he already did. The issue, no wide receiver. I don't know about Calvin Ridley. I don't know if he's coming back. I don't care. They need to move on from him. They need to bring someone in. I don't know if they will or they won't, but I assume that that will be one of their priorities. So I like Cam Ward. I'm going on his passing yards. He should be in a losing game script most of the time against teams who were not playoff teams last year, basically. All right, and then here is the recap for most of the bets, and then I have some on the next page. So I'm not going to read through all of these. You can take a screenshot if you want. These are the ones that I'm actually comfortable betting today. I did not put any of the ones on here that I want to wait on. These I'm comfortable betting today at the prices that we're getting them. And then here are the win totals and player props. So these are all, I've actually already bet all these player props. I do need to go bet the win totals. I have not done that yet. And so I will go do that. But these are all the things I'm comfortable betting today. Now we are going to do a part 2, probably a part 3, maybe even a part 4 to this video. Last year there were 3 parts. It just depends. Like every time the apps put out lines, you know, after free agency, after the draft. These lines are going to change. These lines are going to be put out. And so I will try to do a video whenever that happens to try to talk about any changes or any new bets that we're seeing, because right now we're only getting player props on like the number 1 wide receiver, the number 1 running back, and the quarterback. So once we start getting lines on other people, like some of these backfield pieces that are in shared systems that we can take a stand on, then maybe we can go in on some of those. All right. Thanks, guys. Please like the video. Please make sure you're subscribed. Share this video with whoever might be interested. And let me know what you think is good. Let me know what you think is bad. And let me know if there's any bets you think I've completely missed on this. All right. Thanks, guys.